Hello everyone, and welcome back to Acupuncture is My Life, Eastern Nutrition. Now I know today I was supposed to talk about the COVID-19 stew that Chef Kiara made, and so many people have downloaded and made for themselves and are raving about it. But after my meeting yesterday with Chef Kiara, she recommended that, today's discussion be more in line with how the body, its energies align with nature. That including, or to include food. Which, I agree with her, and I'll go into detail about her stew tomorrow, her COVID-19 stew tomorrow. But what's happening here is, based on her recommendation, it makes a lot of sense because, sometimes when I speak to people in the general public about Eastern nutrition, it just, to them, it's like, what's the difference between Eastern nutrition, Eastern medicine, Western nutrition, and Western medicine? And I usually go into detail, break it down to them, and they're surprised, how we must better align ourselves with nature. Because in the past, you're talking a few thousand years ago, that was the norm among every culture. They were well aligned with the seasons, the fruits and vegetation that grew in each season, the climates relative to what hemisphere they lived in. These things were important because nature would develop an abundance of food sources relative to a particular climate, which allows for sustenance. It allows the human organism to sustain itself based on the type of food in the form of fruits and vegetation that nature presented to you. And even when it came to carnivores, meat eaters, there are only, certain types of animals can only thrive in certain climates. And food sources presented to them, it was all relevant. Everything's relevant to allow for these animals to sustain themselves within that climate, for humans to hunt and eat, which further provided them with the protein that they needed. To sustain themselves. You see, as a Chinese medicine practitioner, I was trained to study the relationship, the interaction between nature and humans and nature. As well as having been trained to identify patterns of change and how it affected or how it played out within the human body. Because when it comes to Chinese medicine, what I love about it is everything is connected. It's not a thing of, I see chips or pizza, and I love it, so I eat it year round. And not understand how it affects your health. Because really, I know it's going to disappoint a lot of people, but we shouldn't be consuming chips and pizza. It's not real food, no matter how you look at it. It's not. It's not good for us. And as we continue to consume more and more and more of these types of foods, the sicker and sicker and sicker society becomes, mentally and physically. Because your brain is a muscle, your brain requires adequate nutrition, proper blood circulation, which carries oxygen, nutrients, fluids, water, carbs to the brain. I mean, you'd be surprised how much glucose uptake the brain requires on a daily basis. You see people like, oh, I took sugars, all types of sugars out of my diet. I drastically cut my carbs and so forth and so on. And, oh, really? And I listen during intake. And more times than not, you'll be surprised when I'm asking certain questions. Do you ever experience bouts of dizziness? Yep. Okay. Yeah, doctor, a lot. Sometimes I feel lightheaded or I'm lacking energy. You may want to consider putting some of those carbs back in your diet. Because carb deficiency, and I'll get into that in future Eastern Nutrition podcast, carbohydrate deficiency can lead to a myriad of problems later on, down the line. Glucose deficiency, huge problem. You know, you want to get your natural sugars, carbs, glucose. You want to get this stuff from natural food or food sources rather. Not, so-called lab-made foods that'll tell you in the box or the plastic wrapper, this amount of carbs. None of that shit is real. None of it. When you find yourself shopping for food and you stop in the processed food aisles, which is like 85% supermarket these days, and you want to pick up those bagged chips or pretzels or just say to yourself, nope. In Eastern Nutrition, we're gonna get deep into all this, and I see where Chef Kiara was coming from, and she recommended that today's discussion just stick to the basics, get into yin and yang, and how we're all deeply tied into nature, which is it's common sense. And the great thing about Chinese medicine and being a doctor of acupuncture, there are so many tools and therapies to my avail to help people. Because Chinese medicine offers energetic intervention in the forms of, let's say, acupuncture, herbs, Eastern nutrition, cupping, Tai Chi, Qigong, which is a form of exercise. All of this stuff promotes balance. That's what it's all about, promoting balance and activating natural healing within the human organism. Chinese medicine, it's on record, and I'll emphasize, on record, the oldest form of medicine on record. It's considered one of the oldest holistic healing traditions on the planet. And it continues to adapt and evolve with time, which is awesome. Thousands of years were spent studying nature and its relationship to the human organism, testing foods and herbs, and carefully recording its effects on the human organism. Also, as we discuss Chinese medicine, under the umbrella of Chinese medicine, physical techniques and different forms of exercise, like I said before, like Qigong, Tai Chi, were developed to maintain vitality. You see in the past, it wasn't just the Chinese, people ate a balanced diet. Normal times, morning, afternoon, early evening. They slept, they got their rest when needed. They did not, or they went out of their way to not overstress the body or even their mind. And because, we didn't have these fast foods or junk food all over the place, they didn't overindulge, because a lot of times they had to hunt, forage for food, and share it within their tribes, within their community. So everything was pretty much well balanced out. So they didn't overindulge, which is bad for you. Everything in moderation. And as a result, this allowed for them to keep up a well-being, a mental well-being, as well as physical well-being. And this is why they lived such long, fruitful lives. To see great-grandchildren and great-great-grandchildren was a norm to a lot of societies thousands of years ago. Where, when you compare it today, lifestyles changed a great deal. We lost the mental ability to regulate our diet, our sleep, just basically our overall lifestyles. And this is why, you can look at a lot of people today, at 40, you would assume they're 60, 65. It's interesting because a lot of people get offended when you're afraid to ask their age, and then when you do, what's the normal follow-up question? How old do I look? That usually follows. I don't speaking in absolute terms, so I won't say always. That usually follows. How old do I look? And when you ask that question, when they ask you that question, you're scared shit. You're like, yo, I know I have to lie. I know I have to say 20. And I know damn well they're not 20. And they know that I know that they're not 20. But you have to say it. I'm asked a lot, whether it's Eastern nutrition or just Chinese medicine, like, what's the actual difference between the two? Because they have their differences, but they're both beneficial in many ways and relieving pain and suffering. Western medicine, from my understanding, looks at the actual disease, treats the disease with hopes that homeostasis will be reestablished on its own. My understanding in a lot of ways that it's not that simple. Because a lot of times when the body eventually breaks down, it went through years and years of stress. And in many ways, it notified you that you needed to correct something. And a lot of times in Western society, we look past that. I don't need to correct them. We just throw a quick Band-Aid on it and keep enjoying what I'm doing, no matter how negligent it is on the body, on you, to you, or for you. I'll just keep doing it. And eventually, maybe 5-10 years from now, I'll stop doing it. I'll stop smoking. I'll stop eating meat. I'll give up alcohol, overindulging. You see, with Chinese medicine, and as a practitioner with Chinese medicine, we tend to focus on where's the imbalance, where's the disharmony, what's causing it, and dig deeper to where's the root and where's the branch. If we treat the branch, can the root correct itself and reestablish balance of yin and yang? Or should I say homeostasis? Or is it that far gone and that bad we need to go right in and treat the branch? And sometimes, the root, go right in and focus on the root. And in some instances, treat the branch secondary to mitigate symptoms, to allow the patient to tolerate this correction process until it is corrected in homeostasis, where yin and yang is balanced, harmonized again. And sometimes this process can carry on for some time. And a lot of people I find in the Western society are impatient. They don't have patience for gradual improvement, which in the long run is better because you really want to focus on dealing with the root cause from a holistic, from a natural perspective. And sometimes that requires not just acupuncture, but Eastern nutrition, herbs, rest, water consumption. That's always, I always have a problem getting my patients or getting people, not always, most times, consume more water. How much water do you drink in a day? Well, I really don't drink water. And I've been through this in previous podcasts, this discussion. Cheapest form of medicine on earth. And by far, in my opinion, the best. You see, but Western medicine, it's awesome when it comes to acute or urgent emergency health problems. Awesome. Sprained an ankle, wrist, like a leg or whatever, boop, right to the hospital. You're not even questioning Western medicine. I mean, awesome. Now, Chinese medicine is also awesome, and it has a long history of dealing with acute problems, including relieving some types of acute as well as chronic pain, allergies, headaches, viruses, stomach issues, indigestion, so forth and so on. But the first thing that comes to mind, acute pain, hospital doctor, your choice. But Western medicine is great for that. But you see, in Chinese medicine, health doesn't exist separate from illness. Health and illness are really one. I mean, it's well connected. Because, disorders, diseases, it doesn't just pop up. In Chinese medicine, we recognize that, diseases come or develop from a pre-existing or underlying pattern of disharmony relative to poor lifestyle habits, genetics, even the environment plays a part. Our focus is closely tied to prevention. You see, because what you eat and how you live are super, super important factors in the prevention of disease. It's not rocket science, it really isn't. And nutritional recommendations play a huge part in that. And even when it comes to acupuncture, qigong, tai chi, Eastern nutrition, cupping, treatment protocols tend to be developed based on the theory of yin and yang and its overall manifestations in the body. And how do we harmonize or rebalance yin and yang? You see, nutritional healing is all about balance. Food, from particular choices of food, how they're cooked, how they're put together, and what season are these meals being prepared to establish balance. It's all relative. It's all relative. See, this state of balance is key to good health. You see, a nice brisk walk or jog first thing in the morning is great for you. Some form of exercise, Tai Chi, yoga. You see, because day represents yang, energy, chi. Whereas at night, which represents yin, we tend to calm down and relax and look to nurture, nourish our yang energies through yin. What we eat during the day should be different from what we eat at night. We consume more yang type of foods during the day and less yin at night. You see, because the energetic effects of food, its flavor, and how we use it to maintain and even, improve health throughout the seasons all depend on balance in yin and yang. And to understand the theory of yin and yang relative to Eastern nutrition is super important because they cannot exist apart or without each other. Yin and yang are interdependent but opposite. And understanding its relationship helps you get a better understanding of the human organism and how it should be fed in order to function at its optimal levels at particular times of the day. When this balance is disrupted, we have problems. We can experience serious problems. And that's why it's usually best to see an acupuncturist along with your primary care physician, along with whatever specialist it's recommended for you to see. Because, we'll diagnose where the imbalance exists, explain to you some nutritional approaches you can take. I have, I don't want to get into particular disorders in this episode. But basically, nature provides foods, and we'll get deep into that, relative to various diseases in future Wednesday episodes of Acupuncture is My Life, Eastern Nutrition. But nature has created, has always presented to us natural medicines that we consume, we change our diet and include more of. You'll see a lot of deficiencies balance itself out, correct itself, even excess patterns. Because as an acupuncturist, these are things that we look for: excess patterns, deficient patterns, heat patterns, cold patterns. And when it comes to Eastern nutrition, what types of foods can we eat, can we consume to restore, again, homeostasis, to reestablish balance? Let's say if we're faced with yen deficiency, there's salty, sour, bitter foods that we can eat, along with acupuncture treatments too. Even separate, but along with acupuncture treatments to restore balance. If yang is out of balance, there's pungent, sweet foods that we can consume along with acupuncture to balance things out. But in future episodes, I'm going to get into different types of disorders, diseases, and what types of foods may be good for these disorders. So we have a lot to talk about relative to Eastern nutrition because, Chef Kiara is just going to hit me in the head with it. Like, boom. This is for our audience. That's for our audience. And if you guys have questions, just, download the Acupuncture is My Life app from the Google Play Store. Shoot as many questions over to me as you want. Some, I'll answer in future podcasts. Especially if you emphasize that. And then, there's most will remain personal, If you don't ask that I discuss it over a podcast, I won't. So if something comes to mind and you want the masses, whether it's here in the United States or in Japan, Australia, Germany, Iran, Pakistan, Philippines, Thailand, Netherlands, UK, Caribbean, South America, Canada. Hey, just request it. I discuss it over future podcasts, and I'll do it. Along with that, you can hop over to the YouTube channel and the Acupuncture is My Life, or follow Acupuncture is My Life on social media as Acupuncture is My Life, or Twitter is Acu_is My Life. But every other platform, it's Acupuncture is My Life. Because I'm receiving questions that I have to discuss in future podcasts. I will discuss in future podcasts from some people in Japan that have contacted me via the app. But tomorrow, I'm going to go into the COVID-19 stew made by Chef Kiara. So many thousands have fell in love. Thousands have downloaded from the acupunctureismylife.com website under Eastern Nutrition. I want to go into detail, talk about the different flavors and properties of what is in this stew, where we can begin to, you can begin to get a clearer understanding of the importance of Eastern nutrition. Because like I've said before, I've dealt with patients' liver issues, green juicing, acupuncture, some herbal formulas, help them a great deal. People with heart issues. Red vegetables and fruits support the kidney. Dark or black fruits, vegetables. So much to learn from future episodes, Eastern Nutrition. But other than that, like I said, check out our social media platforms, because there's just so much information on every social media platform out there that we have to offer. But just remember this one thing. When you're passing a pizza parlor or fast food restaurant, you're shopping, junk food out, you're ready to put that poison in your body. One thing to say to yourself is, nope. But other than that, whenever you want to stay safe and be well, and until tomorrow, acupuncture is my life. What's yours?